David Moyes' job as manager of West Ham United is safe for the foreseeable future. That's been reiterated again yesterday. At the start of the week, there was rumours that came out that there's been a falling out between Sullivan and Moyes over transfer strategy in the January transfer window, and that Sullivan feels we need strikers and Moyes perhaps didn't feel that way, and that the relationship's getting a bit tense and it's putting Moyes' job on the line. Yesterday the reports came out and said, oh, that's rubbish, forget that, there's nothing to that. And to be fair, I felt that as well. The sources yesterday were much more reliable when it came to West Ham news. And Sullivan basically said, I'm standing by Moyes. Moyes is the manager, I'm sticking by him. Now that could be true today. It doesn't mean it'll be true should we lose to Arsenal and Brentford. That stance could change pretty quickly. But when the final whistle went against Leicester, I was pretty confident David Moyes would be in charge for when the starting whistle went against Arsenal on Boxing Day. And lo and behold, he's going to be. I've accepted that. Doesn't mean I agree with it. No twisting those words. I've accepted that that's what the board will do, has done, and will continue to do for the next 3 weeks anyway. But it's not going to stop managers being linked to his job, because while I've accepted that, what I can't accept or won't accept is that the board aren't or haven't drawn up a short list of managers that they would go after should Moyes not turn it round. Now apparently David Moyes has been dealt that 3-game threat or promise, depending on how you want to look at it from the board. He's got 3 games to turn it round. He needs to accumulate X amount of points. No one knows what X is, but he's got to get a certain amount of points, otherwise he's going to be dismissed. Now I'm not going to discuss that policy because it infuriates me. You just know this, it winds me up a lot, and if I start discussing it, I'll get wound up and start ranting about it non-stop. So that's the threat he's been delivered by the board, and it's consistent. It's consistent for this board. Pellegrini had it, Bilic had it, Allardyce had it. When things start going sour at West Ham, the manager gets told you've got 3 games to turn it around. Whether that's true or not, well, I don't believe it is. I don't believe it is. I feel you can't really have Arsenal away as one of the games in there. I don't think that's a fair barometer to judge any manager on at West Ham. We'll have to wait and see. Time will tell depending on how the results go. But certainly, if we picked up less than 3 points in those 3 games, the pressure is going to get cranked up. And while I've accepted the board won't sack Moyes in this World Cup break, like I said, the one thing I won't accept is they're drawing up a shortlist. They should probably have that shortlist at all times, but especially now, given the circumstances that we're in, using this break to get a plan together. You look at Brighton, one of the best run clubs, possibly the best run club in English football. They had a plan if Graham Potter left. Now I know what you're going to say, well that's a bit different. Potter left to go to Chelsea rather than being sacked. But my point was, they still had a plan. Graham Potter was the securest manager in a job in the Premier League, but Brighton still had something in place, just in case they needed, for whatever reason, to either dismiss Graham Potter or Graham Potter jump ship. And that's not really something I've ever got confidence in West Ham having. If you were to ask them in the summer, who would you go after if Moyes got sacked and it was an honest interrogation you had with Sullivan, he wouldn't know. He would just say, well, why would we sack Moyes? But they don't plan for every scenario possible. This break, they have to plan for the scenario that Moyes won't turn it around. They have to assume he's not going to. Because assuming he is going to and he doesn't, that's a dangerous game to play. But assuming he's not going to turn around and he does, then happy days. That list that you've got, you can put it in the drawer and keep updating it, hopefully, between now and the end of the season. But you won't need it immediately. Now that's led to a few names being linked to West Ham. And last week when I was away, I saw Gonzo's video. Steven Gerrard. My reaction was a bit like Gonzo's. No chance. No chance. Did I believe it? I kind of did. I kind of did, just because he's free, essentially. Because this board don't pay for managers. This board do not poach managers from other clubs. There's I think there's one example of them doing it at Birmingham, and that's it. All the other managers they recruit are out of work. So Steven Gerrard's ticking the first box that needs to be ticked when it comes to whether the board want that manager. You know, you get those flow charts, I don't know what they're called. You know, it starts with a question, yes or no, and you break your way down, then it has a conclusion. Are you hungry? Yes or no. Yes. Would you like hot food? Yes. Okay. Do you like American food? Yes. You carry on. Have a burger. Those kind of charts, right? The board have got one. I'll do something stupid with Gonzo one day. We might make up our West Ham board stupid chart to come to a conclusion as to your point. Steven Gerrard would tick a lot of boxes for what they would look for in a manager. But what I would like in a manager at West Ham, Steven Gerrard's ticking a lot of boxes there as well. What I don't want to see in a manager. I was suspicious of him joining Aston Villa. You know, St Johnstone had a better season than Rangers when Gerrard won the league at Rangers. Got his move to Villa. It was a bit of a punt from Villa. It was a better move from Gerrard than it was Villa. Lost Michael Beale, who at Rangers, everybody knew. In Scotland, everybody knew Michael Beale was the brains behind the operation. He went with them. So did Gary McAllister and that. They went down to Aston Villa. It just started to work. And to be fair, before Beale left in the summer for QPR, Villa were struggling. Villa were not playing well last season. So even the brains behind the operation, you know, listen to Emi Martinez or Damien Martinez during the World Cup. He speaks very openly about how Michael Beale was in charge of training at Aston Villa, and he was the one that did things. He's the best coach he's ever had and stuff. Went to QPR, ripped it up, and he's gone back up to Rangers while Steven Gerrard is down the job centre. So Gerrard to West Ham, it's an absolute no-no for me. I'd be very disappointed if that was the answer to the solution. Next up, we've got Thomas Frank, a more recent one that's been linked to West Ham. Makes sense, but my question with Thomas Frank's a good manager. I think he's done really, really well with Brentford. I think the football they play is okay. I don't think it's as good as some people suggest. It's not free-flowing, prime Barcelona stuff, but you're not going to get that with the players he's got at his disposal. But that would be my question. Well, can he then play that stuff? I guess the answer would be yes. He saw it in the Championship when he did have one of the better squads available, and he utilised it. He got the best out of Saïd Benrahma, for example. So I think I'd be okay with Thomas Frank. But my question back to the board would be, well, what's the plan going forward? Do you need to get something for a West Ham United fan this Christmas? Perhaps you just want to treat yourself, or maybe even the other half is badgering you about what to get you for Christmas this year. Head over to our online store. We've still got some Christmas jumpers, limited stock, but we've still got some available. We've also got some West Ham beer mats, which are just fantastic. We're a bit biased, but they are brilliant. We've got signed books, including the Tony Carr autobiography. We've got t-shirts, polo shirts, mugs, and even some West Ham socks. There's something for everyone. So if you're looking to buy something for someone else or just treat yourself, head over to our shop at hammerschatstore.com. Link in description and the pinned comments of this video. Because the model of Brentford is incredibly different to the model at West Ham United in seasons gone by. So are we trying to go down the route that we want a head coach rather than a hands-on manager? Because Moyes is an old school manager as you're going to get. Moyes likes to have all his fingers and all the pies at the club. He likes to know what's going on in every department. He likes to have control. We've heard it with player contracts. David Moyes has got the final say over player contracts. And I think if you're going to have Moyes, then fine, admirable. I get it. I get why you'd let your manager have the final say. But at Brentford, I'd be surprised if Thomas Frank was in charge of the contracts. In fact, I'm quite confident he wouldn't be. It would be. They've got a team to do that deals with the data, the numbers, the analytics, and it's a completely different model. So could you take Thomas Frank out of Brentford and would he be a success at West Ham? I'm not too sure, unless that's the route we wanted to go down. Unless the club were prepared to back Rob Newman heavily in the transfer market, back him heavily with what he wants to do in terms of networking, so on and so forth. And it was a completely separate thing to the manager of West Ham. Again, a bit like what Graham Potter had at Brighton, where you take the manager out and that's fine. Everything else carries on as normal. So Thomas Frank, good manager, but he's at a completely different club. Could he do it at West Ham? I'm not sure. I don't know. And I do wonder if... I just hope that if we are going to go after someone like him, that we have a plan as to what the structure of the club's going to look like going forward. Now, I'm more in favour of what Brentford and Brighton are doing because, 10 years ago, if you asked me, I would have preferred the David Moyes model, which is one guy's in charge because of Sir Alex. I looked at him at Man United and I thought, oh, we could have something like that at West Ham. This longevity, one guy's in charge of everything, and if he's that good, then why not? But now, football's changed completely. Managers, I think it's about a year and a half or something, is the average lifespan of a manager at a Premier League club. That is really low. And that's with some managers dragging that average up, like Pep Guardiola and Graham Potter at Brighton. They've been there for quite a few years. They're dragging that number up. So, if you are going to have a manager every couple of seasons and that's it, then you're going to need to make sure that the infrastructure is separate to the manager. One guy isn't in control of the whole club, so that you can chop and change head coaches, essentially. Next up, we've got Sean Dyche. I've given my thoughts. I think he'd keep us up. I think he'd do well. Just not sure that's what I'd like to see at West Ham long term. But I'll tell you what, there's one man I do not want to see linked. And I know rumours don't mean it's true, but I don't even want to see a rumour linking this man to the West Ham job. Roberto Martinez. Just left Belgium after another poor campaign. The biggest mystery in football is how that country were ever #1 FIFA ranked without winning a trophy. It just doesn't really make sense, does it? But anyway, they were. I know why it's happened, because of their qualification wins, etc, etc. I know why they've done it, but it just seems a bit bonkers that the #1 country at football in the world has not won a trophy. It doesn't really add up, does it? Anyway, I couldn't think of anything worse. Now, that's not to say he's a bad manager. He's done well with Wigan. Wigan fans must love him. Wigan fans must adore him. And he's done an okay at best job in the Premier League, and he's done a poor job, in my opinion, with Belgium. Oh, I just couldn't think of anything worse. If I saw Martinez just getting, I'm getting wound up talking about it. When I saw Martinez left the Belgium job, I mean, he was leaving anyway, but he announced he'd quit rather than his contract ended. Then he did a moonwalk. Did you see that in the press conference after the game? His interview after the Belgium game when they got knocked out, he sort of like moonwalked out the view of the camera. It was thoroughly impressive. But I don't want a manager that can moonwalk. I want a manager that's gonna get us winning trophies. That's what I want. Playing good football and winning a trophy. I'm not convinced Martinez is the man to win a trophy. I'm not convinced Martinez is the man to play good football. And I'm not convinced Martinez is the man to keep West Ham in the Premier League either. He's just somebody that I feel I can almost imagine getting linked to the West Ham job should Moyes vacate, and I can almost imagine it actually happening as well, because his footballing CV is relatively impressive. You know, the Belgian manager's job, usually to get the manager of a country that good, yeah, that would be considered a decent manager, but not for me. Now, I don't like discussing who I want. I mentioned over on Patreon, but it's no surprise. You can work it out, kind of thing. But one man that interests me a lot, and it's getting less likely as the weeks go by, is Scaloni, Argentina manager. And coming into the World Cup, what did they do? 36 games unbeaten they were before they got beat by Saudi Arabia in the opener. Obviously, they're into the quarterfinals, playing the Netherlands. Possibly we'll have a semi-final against Brazil, which will be, well, thoroughly exciting, won't it? I'm not confident in Argentina making the final. I don't mind saying it. I hope they do win it. I would like Argentina to win it for Messi. I'm a big fan of Messi. Who isn't? But I hate this. Do you know like football myths, if you like, or questions, and some of them just wind you up. One of mine is when I see people say, well, how can Messi be the best ever player? He's never won the World Cup. I'll just, do you know what I mean? Like, okay, factually correct, but does that mean he's not the best? No, not really. It just means he's not won the World Cup. So I hope he does win the World Cup, so it just gets rid of that stupid argument. So I would like to see Argentina win it for Messi. I don't think they will. I'm not being impressed by them at the World Cup that much. But when you look at their squad, it's not. I don't think it's as good as Brazil's. It's not as good as France's. It's not as good as England's. So they're doing okay. I hope they get to the semi-final, as do Brazil. But anyway, Scaloni, yes, he's someone that I was wondering if Argentina were to flop. They haven't, but say they went out in the quarterfinals to the Netherlands, would he keep his job? Possibly. We'll have to wait and see. You know, Flick's kept the German job, I think. Certainly the rumours were he was going to keep it, unless he's been dismissed. I should probably have checked that before I open my mouth. But anyway, if Scaloni was to be dismissed as Argentina coach, he's somebody that actually, that would have been my... punch may be a strong word, but there's got to be unfinished business for him at West Ham. He's got a lot of making up to do, hasn't he? One thing we do know is he knows how to throw away a trophy at West Ham, but he's somebody that, you know, is, for such a young manager, his football and CV is really good, plays decent football with Argentina, but I guess you've got to wait to the conclusion of the World Cup. But yeah, there you go, there's the managers that's been linked to West Ham, and one manager that isn't been, which is Roberto Martinez. Just please do not link him to this job. I will be annoyed if I do. Moyes, listen, he's the West Ham manager, and I hope he turns around. And it doesn't mean I want him long term as West Ham manager or anything like that. It's because he's the West Ham manager. It's like players. I might not like a particular player, I might think he's out of form, but I hope that player goes on to do well and prove me wrong. Because it means he's doing well for West Ham. Just like if I think a player's a good player and he's playing well, I hope he proves me right, because it means he's doing well for West Ham. So while Moyes is here, I'm going to hope he turns it around, because he's the manager of West Ham. I want to see us winning games. Do I think he will? No, I'm still not convinced. I did wonder if maybe I was getting a bit emotional after the Leicester game. I took a few days before we did that cup of tea, myself and Gonzo. And even now, what, 3 weeks after the Leicester game, my opinion hasn't changed, which is I don't think he will turn it around. And am I disappointed he's still here? Not really, but only because my expectation was he'd still be here. I think if you expect something, I think it lowers your disappointment levels. A bit like what Billy Connolly once said, expect nothing and you can't be disappointed. It's a bit like that, really. I expected nothing to happen. Nothing's happened, so it's hard to be disappointed. Like I said, I just hope he turns it around. Every small injury, whether it's for Creswell going off or a Gerrard injury in the World Cup, just makes me even more worried, if you like, going into that Arsenal game. But we'll deal with that in a couple of weeks' time. I'm going to shut up and disappear. We're back later on this evening with the England-France preview. And then I don't know what the video is tomorrow. I know what I hope it's going to be, but I don't think it will be that. And then Saturday we will have our next guest. Another West Ham channel will be providing the video on Saturday. Then next week, if all goes well, next week we've got another interview with a former West Ham United player, and I'm looking forward to it, actually. Anyway, enjoyed this episode. Please do drop a like on it. Subscribe to the Hams Chat. Catch you tonight.